haven't read in a minute, so I've been poker obsessed. Effects on the structure of public opinion. Okay. I shall not examine the entire problem of the relationship between propaganda and opinion. However, the effects of propaganda on the psychic life of the individual, which I attempted to sketch in the preceding chapter, obviously have collective consequences, mass effects, if only because the mass is composed of individuals and because propaganda designed to act on the mass at the same time changes individuals who are part of that mass. People become influenced and warped. People become influenced and warped. This leads necessarily to modifications in public opinion. But what we consider much more important than mere changes in the content of public opinion, for example, whether a favorable opinion of Negroes turns into an unfavorable opinion, is its actual structure. So we're more concerned with the structure of public opinion than the content. Okay. This coincides with the well-known fact that a relationship exists between the structure of opinion and the size and organization of groups. Propaganda simultaneously modifies the structure of opinion and of the group where such opinion is formed. Modification of the constituent elements of public opinion. On this subject, I will not repeat what Jean Stoetzel has already demonstrated in this book that I can't pronounce, but I am basing my text on his work. To begin with, certain factors of change are easy to understand. It has often been said that public opinion forms itself by exchanges of opinion on a controversial question and shapes itself by the interaction of these different viewpoints. But an examination of the effects of propaganda must radically destroy such a view of the formation of public opinion. On the one hand, as I have already shown, the questions that propaganda takes upon itself cease to be controversial. Truths are pronounced that do not bear discussion. They are believed or not believed, and that is all. At the same time, interpersonal communications cease. In a propagandized milieu, communications no longer take place in interpersonal patterns, but in patterns set by the propaganda organization. There is action, but no interaction. As I have shown, the propagandee, not the propagand. As I have shown, the propagandee and the non-propagandee cannot discuss. No psychologically acceptable communication or exchange is possible between them. Finally, in large societies in which propaganda is at work, opinion can no longer form itself except via the centralized media of information. No opinion is of any consequence unless it is first communicated to the masses by the vast media of dissemination of propaganda, and if it is not assimilated on a massive scale. Here we are facing structural changes. To understand to what extent propaganda can modify the structure of public opinion, it will suffice to look at the laws on the formation of public opinion indicated by Leonard W. Doob in the book Public Opinion and Propaganda. who rejects the term laws. One can easily see that propaganda plays precisely the role Dube assigns to public opinion, to reduce frustration, anxiety, and so on, and that propaganda directly creates public opinion by eventually creating conformity and externalizing inner opinions. But I will proceed along another route. The first effect I will try to analyze is what is vaguely called crystallization of public opinion. Surely Stoetzel is right when he says, on the basis of American analysis, that the process is not so simple as it seems. Frequently, it is said that a few scattered individual opinions suddenly, by a mysterious operation, unite and form public opinion. It is then said that one of the elements in this process is propaganda. Stoetzel has shown that things do not happen that way. Public opinion does not derive from individual opinions. Here we are faced with two heterogeneous problems. One cannot speak of a crystallization of individual opinions. Rather, a vague, inconsistent, unformulated, latent opinion, which one might call raw opinion, is transformed by propaganda through a true process of crystallization into explicit opinion. What does this imply? From here on, we will be in the presence of organized opinion having a certain structure or skeleton. There is no progression at all from a state of private opinion to a state of public opinion, but only from a state of public opinion to another state of that same public opinion. A changing and versatile opinion becomes fixed. It is given strict orientation. Propaganda specifies precisely the objectives of that opinion and delineates their exact outlines. In that way, propaganda also affects the individual, reducing his field of thought and angle of vision by the creation of stereotypes. What were only vague inclinations until the intervention of propaganda now take the form of ideas. This is all the more remarkable because propaganda, as we have seen, acts much more through emotional shock than through reasoned conviction. It nevertheless produces by that shock an ideological elaboration that gives great precision and stability to the ensuing opinion. But this hardening of opinion is neither total nor coherent. That is why I speak of a skeleton. Crystallization takes place at certain points. Propaganda does not produce generalized, undifferentiated ideas, but very specific opinions which cannot be applied just anywhere. And the degree of effectiveness of that propaganda depends precisely on its choice of crystallization points. If one can harden opinion on a certain key point, one can control an entire sector of opinion from there. This makes even more sense if one keeps in mind that the process of propaganda consists of creating micro groups, nuclei, highly organized and endowed with great strength and conviction. These are precisely destined to crystallize opinion, help it to formulate, and thus play a role of the skeleton. This was Lenin's theory. What's up, Hate, Love, Nothing, Paul? The Book of Mars. Hey, Tommy, Saint Kami. No, we're just studying propaganda. Unhurt Smokey's feelings. I don't think I hurt Smokey's feelings. Maybe his pride. The hardening of opinion soon makes it impervious to all contrary reasoning, proof, and fact. That's an important point. This hardening of opinion soon makes it impervious to all contrary reasoning, proof, and fact. And I've noticed this. No matter Like, no matter how sound my reasoning is, no how much proof, how many facts I present to people, if they're stuck in their ways, they're stuck in their ways. In fact, there's something called the backfire effect, whereas if you present evidence to someone that's contrary to what they believe, it actually reinforces their belief, even though your evidence, is contrary to that belief. I don't know. It's funny. I don't know why that is, but MacDougall makes this point. Propaganda that plays on opinion influences that opinion without offering proof. Latent opinion subjected to such propaganda, if it is well made, will absorb everything, believe everything, without discrimination. This will cause opinion to pass the stage of crystallization, and from that moment on, opinion will no longer accept anything that is different. I already have shown that even a proved fact can do nothing against crystallized opinions. How many people do you guys know in your life that you could present them like absolute factual evidence that they're wrong and they don't care? They'll still be wrong. I experience that all the time on YouTube. They will defend the Matrix to the point of throwing punches to do it. I found this out the hard way when I ruined a Christmas. Yep. That's why I honestly, in like 2000, I used to be really obsessed with research and like having facts and evidence and stuff. But then like around 2009, 2010, I was like, no one gives a fuck. Like, this is just a waste of my time because I can have all the evidence to support my claims. It doesn't fucking matter. So I don't even care about providing evidence for my claims or proof because it's like no one gives a fuck anyways. And then at that point, I kind of just stopped researching into like conspiracy or researching anything. I was just like, I'm just gonna live my fucking life. But eventually, I guess I got bored, and now I just kind of I like to read stuff I'm interested for fun. No, I just do this for fun now. I don't expect like I'm gonna fucking change anyone's mind by reading a book and having knowledge or something. But anyways, just keep reading. Such organization of opinion tends always to a certain unification. Opinion will begin to eliminate its own contradictions and establish itself as a function of identical catchwords that will inevitably have a unifying effect. Besides, at that moment, individual opinions also change, for the hardening of public opinion destroys their originality. Details and nuances disappear. The more active the propaganda, the more monolithic and less individualized public opinion will be. The more active the propaganda, the more monolithic and less individualized public opinion would be. I kind of feel like that's like people are all the fucking same, right? It's like I notice they all, like, people have a common response when I'm like, I'm reading a book about propaganda. They'll go, but how do you know the book isn't propaganda? They all say that. It's hilarious. It's almost as like they're all brainwashed to have the same fucking opinion. Huh. They all think they know what propaganda is. This book actually goes over that, about how people think propaganda is lies. But actually, he's saying, like, in Nazi Germany, Goebbels, the propagandist guy, head propagandist, he stressed that propaganda must be based on facts. And, like, he wouldn't report things that were actually true. He told the people not to report them because he didn't think they would be believed. And it says that if you put out propaganda that the public doesn't believe, it hurts your credibility, and it like makes your propaganda less effective. So everyone thinks propaganda is all bullshit and lies, right? And misrepresentations, but it's not. It's all factual, but then the lie is in the narrative, so they'll present facts that support the lie narrative and omit facts that contradict the narrative. And so, but if you go and research the facts, the facts will show, yeah, they are facts, but put facts together in a certain way and you can create a false narrative, and that's how they lie. But anyways, I'm like fucking editorializing here. A good example of this process is the formation of class consciousness by Marxist propaganda. After the creation of class consciousness by the promulgation of information, of which I have spoken above, came the transformation of this class consciousness by propaganda into a system, a criterion of judgment, a belief, a stereotype. Propaganda led to the elimination of all deviant ideas and finally rendered labor's opinion impenetrable to all that did not conform to the initial pattern. Present-day class consciousness is a typical product of propaganda. Interesting. I always thought class warfare was like a legitimate thing that we should be concerned about or something. This unifying character leads us to a second propaganda effect on public opinion. By the process of simplification, propaganda makes it take shape more rapidly. Without simplification, no public opinion can exist anyway. The more complex problems, judgments, and criteria are, the more diffuse opinion will be. Nuances and gradations prevent public opinion from forming. The more complicated it is, the longer it takes to assume solid shape. But in the case of such diffusion, propaganda intervenes with the force of simplification. Yeah, they like to simplify shit, like make America great again. They hate us for our freedom, like stupid buzzwords. Or buzz slogans. Attitudes are reduced to two, positive and negative. In plain view, propaganda will simply place anyone with more differentiated opinions into one group or the other. For example, a man not altogether favorably inclined toward communism is simply thrown into the fascist clique by propaganda, even if he tries to think in terms of social justice. And even if he rejects capitalism, without being an ally of the bourgeoisie imperialism, he becomes one in the eyes of all. Problems are made simple, Goebbels wrote, by simplifying the thoughts of the masses and reducing them to primitive patterns. Propaganda was able to present the complex process of political and economic life in simplest terms. We have taken matters previously available only to experts and a small number of specialists and have carried them into the street and hammered them into the brain of little man. Yep, that's accurate. People are talking about politics and economics and they have no fucking clue what they're talking about, and they have like these simplistic opinions of like complex issues. And answers to problems are clear-cut, white and black. Under such conditions, public opinion forms rapidly, breaks loose, and expresses itself with force. It then carries along on its irresistible course all differentiated and average opinions that have appeared too late for inclusion in the process of crystallizing opinion. We have already seen We have already seen how, from the psychological point of view, propaganda reinforces and even creates stereotypes and prejudices. But prejudice is not and cannot be part of a solely individual psychology. It is the individual in relation to others who has prejudices, and their crystallization leads to a transformation of the structure of public opinion. Of course, prejudices arise spontaneously, but propaganda uses them for the formation of public opinion, which in turn becomes simplified, unreal, rigid, and infantile. Public opinion shaped by propaganda loses all authenticity. A final propaganda effect we want to trace in this connection is the separation of A final propaganda effect we want to trace in this connection is the separation, very judiciously demonstrated by Stoetzel, between individual and public opinion. The distinction between stereotyped opinions and profound attitudes leads us back to the distinction between public and private opinion. Stereotypes are categories of public opinion. Profound attitudes, on the other hand, exist where people live by the laws of private opinions. Stereotypes are the categories of public opinions. Profound attitudes, on the other hand, exist where people live by the laws of private opinions. Okay. So stereotypes are categories of public opinion, and profound attitudes exist where people live by the laws of private opinion. What's a profound attitude? Between the two, there is a natural difference, and the two types of opinion can coexist without interchange or mutual influence. We are thus thinking in two ways as members of a social body and as individuals. In the former case, one may say that we are abandoning ourselves to a thought that is not ours, and there is no reason why diverse opinions of that kind should be coherent or unified in a system. That is the task of propaganda, but we also have our own private views. The effect of propaganda is to separate the two types of opinion still more. Ordinarily, some interplay between the two sectors continues, but this is being short-circuited. Relations are interrupted when propaganda takes over public opinion. At that moment, public opinion assumes a rigidity and a density that make the expression of individual opinion impossible, and moreover close it in on all sides. Private opinion clearly becomes devalued where public opinion is organized by propaganda. The more progress we make, the less private opinion can express itself through the mass media. The development of the press and radio has considerably reduced the number of people who can express their ideas and opinions publicly. Far from permitting private opinion to express itself, these media exclusively serve public opinion, which is no longer fed by private opinion at all. Individual opinion is without value or importance in the milieu, and even in the individual himself, as public opinion assumes greater authority and exercises more power. From there on, private opinion can no longer absorb the various elements of public opinion in order to rethink them and integrate them. Propaganda makes public opinion impossible to be assimilated by the individual. He can only follow impersonally the current into which he is thrown. And the more public opinion becomes massive and expresses itself in a normal curve, the more individual opinions become fragmented. On the collective plane, they express themselves in such a dispersed way that their intrinsic uncertainty is revealed. In this fashion, man's psychological process is separated into two unrelated elements. So private and public opinion have no relation. Interesting. Okay, that was kind of short, but I think I'll take a break there. I'm getting kind of hungry here. Hopefully I'll read tomorrow. We're only about 100 more pages and the book is done, and I'm going to start the Technological Society, and I almost want to reread this book after I read the Technological Society because it's fucking heavy reading, and I don't know, I think it's a book that I should probably read twice. It's like fucking did some deep shit. So have a good day, everyone.